Welcome to A Course in Miracles in Practice. Today we're beginning an exploration of a truly pivotal lesson, Lesson 343.
And the title itself is the core teaching. I am not asked to make a sacrifice to find the mercy and the peace of God.
We're deep in the workbook, and it's forcing us to confront this foundational misunderstanding we have about what salvation is supposed to cost.
Most of us, consciously or not, think that to get something of ultimate value, we have to give up something else of value, a painful loss for a great gain.
And this lesson just completely dismantles that entire way of thinking. There is no loss involved.
We're going to look at how this lesson unpacks that belief. We're so glad you're joining us for this, and as always, we love to hear from you. You can reach us by email at acim@theworldharmonyproject.org.
And you can also find us on TikTok and YouTube. Our handle is @theworldharmonyproject. Your connection really means a lot to us.
Okay, so let's start by reading the lesson itself.
Lesson 343, I am not asked to make a sacrifice to find the mercy and the peace of God.
The end of suffering cannot be loss. The gift of everything can be but gain. You only give.
You never take away. And you created me to be like you, so sacrifice becomes impossible for me as well as you. I too must give. And so all things are given unto me forever and forever. As I was created, I remain. Your son can make no sacrifice, for he must be complete, having the function of completing you. I am complete because I am your son. I cannot lose, for I can only give, and everything is mine eternally.
The mercy and the peace of God are free. Salvation has no cost. It is a gift that must be freely given and received. And it is this that we would learn today.
That opening line, I am not asked to make a sacrifice. It's an enormous relief, but it can also be a kind of spiritual shock.
It is a shock because we are just so deeply conditioned by culture, by history, and certainly by many religious traditions to see spiritual growth through this lens of sacrifice.
That conditioning has woven suffering and penance and this idea of painful surrender right into the very fabric of what we think of as faith.
Right. If you think about how repentance is often interpreted, it implies a painful exchange. The thinking is, I have to give up something I enjoy, or I must endure this hardship, or I have to accept this loss, and then, only then, might I become worthy of God's grace or peace.
And the Course just turns that completely on its head. It says the moment you believe that peace requires you to give up something you genuinely hold dear, you've already misunderstood what peace is.
You've confused it with the ego's idea of a bargain, a transaction. But peace isn't something you trade for. The lesson is telling us it's our natural state.
And this really is the substantive correction that's being offered here. So many traditional ideas seem to operate on this
Balancing of scales. There has to be an equal and opposite reaction to a perceived sin. If I've done wrong, I must pay. If I want to find happiness, I have to prove I've earned it, usually through some form of suffering.
You can see that idea playing out everywhere in history. Abstaining from certain foods, fasting for long periods, mandatory tithing.
Or even performing acts of service not from a place of love, but as a required penance, as a payment to atone for something specific. The nature of God as presented in the Course is a relationship of pure giving, not of transaction.
Peace is a gift. It's given freely, unconditionally. It doesn't require payment or penance, and there are absolutely no strings attached.
Any idea of a required loss is an invention. It's an ego construct designed to keep the belief in separation alive and well. It reinforces the whole idea of original sin and guilt.
This isn't just an organized religion. We internalize this exchange principle everywhere in our lives. There's this cultural assumption that nothing of real worth comes easily.
So we just assume happiness has to be paid for.
And you can see that manifesting all the time. Think about the stories we tell ourselves about our suffering. We can start to believe our pain is somehow noble.
Or that our unhappiness right now is justified. That maybe it's even necessary because of mistakes we made in the past. We wear our struggle like a badge of honor, thinking it proves our seriousness or our depth.
It's the ego that's making that argument, isn't it? If you stop paying with your pain, you lose your right to the reward.
Exactly. Because if the reward, the mercy and peace of God, is actually free, then all the pain we've invested in so carefully suddenly becomes meaningless.
And that idea is terrifying to the ego. The whole structure is built on justifying its own pain and the pain it sees in the world.
The ego needs the system of sacrifice because it invented the crime. If the crime of separating from God is real, then of course a payment has to be made. But the Course says the separation never actually happened.
That shift in perspective, from believing we have to earn something to realizing it's already been given, requires a complete reevaluation of our identity.
It does, and that's where this lesson becomes intensely practical and actionable in our daily lives, especially when we confuse who we are with the stories of what we do or what we've suffered.
Let's maybe look at how this idea of sacrifice plays out in our relationships. That seems like a common area for this.
It is. Let's take a simple example. A friend needs help. They need you to help them move some heavy boxes on a Saturday.
Okay, and you might be feeling genuinely exhausted, just completely depleted. You know you need that day for your own rest or to handle other things.
And yet, what do many of us do? We say yes. We internalize this belief that to be a good friend, we must sacrifice our own time, our energy, our needed rest.
And the fear behind that is the mistaken idea that if I don't make this sacrifice, I might lose the relationship, or at least my good standing in it.
The sacrifice feels like the price of admission. We start to believe that setting a boundary or simply saying no means we're withholding love or that we're being selfish.
But what's really happening, we're sacrificing our own inner peace to maintain an image, the image of the perfect friend.
And the realization this lesson offers is that when we choose, honestly, when we choose our own peace or rest, we are letting go of a burden we placed on ourselves, the burden of performing for love.
We're not sacrificing the friendship. We're sacrificing the illusion that the friendship depends on our willingness to suffer for it.
Exactly. The lesson is reminding us that our worth is independent of our usefulness to others. Our identity as God's Son is not built on how many boxes we moved or how tired we made ourselves.
So when we stop performing that sacrifice, we actually invite real, unburdened freedom and genuine love into the relationship.
Because it's no longer being used as a transaction. We're not using it as proof of our goodness.
This leads right into the identity of struggle, building a whole self-concept around what we've had to overcome.
We do that so often. We define ourselves by the obstacles we've endured, how tough we are because of it all. I am a survivor. I am resilient.
And if that struggle is removed, if peace or success comes easily, the mind just panics.
It does. It interprets the removal of the struggle as a terrifying loss of self-definition. Who am I if I'm not the fighter, the one who overcame the odds?
That fear runs so deep because the ego invests everything in feeling special, and pain is one of its favorite tools for creating a sense of specialness.
The specific nature of our suffering, our unique challenges, our unique story of endurance, it becomes the very marker of our individuality. The pain feels like proof that we exist, that we matter.
But the lesson cuts right through that by saying, the end of suffering cannot be loss. If we lose that identity of being a struggler, what if we really lost?
Only the illusion that required the pain in the first place. What's left is the eternal self, which needs no struggle at all to prove its worth. Its worth is just a given.
We can see the same kind of attachment when we look at our personal narrative.
Right.
Maybe think about something like holding on to old journals.
That's a great example. People keep decades of journals, even if they never look at them again, because those pages feel like they contain their identity, who they were, what they went through,
how they tried to make sense of their lives. The emotional investment in those records can be incredibly intense.
The mind starts to treat that personal story, the detailed account of all the mistakes and triumphs and perceived injustices, as if it is the self.
So if you suggest letting go of the attachment to that story, even if it's a story filled with pain, the mind just screams, "You're trying to destroy who I am."
And that reaction creates the feeling of sacrifice before anything has even been lost. The mind is just reacting to a perceived threat to its own definition of itself.
But the Course is so direct about this. The version of you that's built from all those past evaluations, the one meticulously recorded in those journals, that is not the self that God created.
Those journals hold interpretations. They hold emotional reactions and accounts of events in a world of time and space. They do not contain your identity.
The meaning of who you are, your eternal, sinless nature, isn't stored in those temporary records.
And this is the correction from Lesson 343. Our true self is untouched by anything written in those journals.
So the fear of sacrifice is really just a confusion. It's confusing the story, the ego's carefully built timeline, with the eternal whole self.
You realize nothing real was ever at risk.
You aren't being asked to give up meaning or memory. You're just letting go of the mistaken belief that your value is somehow tied to the emotional content of your past.
Which brings us right back to that core metaphysical principle in the lesson. You only give, you never take away. This describes God, and therefore it describes us as His creation.
Giving is the nature of love. It's about expansion, not contraction.
So if we are feeling a sense of sacrifice, it's a sign. It's a sign that we're looking at the situation through the ego's lens. We are focusing on what we think we have to give up,
Our grievances, our attachments.
instead of just accepting the truth of our completeness.
The workbook really emphasizes this point over and over, that giving and receiving are the same thing in truth. And this isn't just a moral idea.
Let's think about a small moment of perceived sacrifice. Say we decide to release a grievance we've been holding against a friend. When we let go of that judgment and offer peace to our friend instead, we aren't sacrificing the grievance. We are removing a block in our own mind. We're offering peace to ourselves first.
And as we give that peace, we automatically open ourselves to receive the very peace we offered.
We get the peace instantly because we chose to extend it. The idea of a cost of a sacrifice was just the ego insisting that we hold on to the grievance to feel special and separate.
This whole concept of free giving and effortless receiving, it feels like this is why the lesson is placed where it is, so deep in the workbook, leading us toward the definition of a miracle.
I think so. A miracle, in the course's terms, is just a shift in perception that undoes an error.
And the profound error we're talking about here is the belief that sacrifice is necessary, which implies we are incomplete and that a real painful separation from love must have happened.
The correction, the miracle, is the recognition that we are already complete.
Our completion is the miracle, which leads to one of the most expansive lines in the whole lesson. Your son can make no sacrifice, for he must be complete, having the function of completing you.
That idea can be intellectually challenging at first. The idea that we have the function of completing God. How can the Son complete the Father if the Father is already total?
Right. It seems like a contradiction.
We have to understand completing not as adding something that God lacks, but as affirming the totality that already exists.
So God's creation of the Son was an extension of his own completeness.
Exactly. And when we, the Son, believe we are separate, small, fragmented, we are, in our own minds, denying that totality. We're casting a shadow over the wholeness of creation.
That fragmentation started with that tiny mad idea of separation.
So our function of completing God is simply to accept the completeness He gave us. When we accept our own sinlessness, our eternal nature, our wholeness, we are affirming that the totality of God is unbroken.
Our acceptance of who we truly are is the affirmation of what God is. It reverses that momentary error of separation in our own mind.
We're not adding anything to God. We are just removing the self-imposed barrier that was blocking our awareness of His entirety.
Which brings us all the way back to the beginning, back to that internal amnesty the lesson offers. The mercy and the peace are free.
We don't have to work for them. We don't have to pay for them.
We only need to release the illusions, the beliefs in separation and sacrifice that are blocking our awareness of the joy that's already there.
The only effort is in letting go of the belief in effort itself, in letting go of the belief in sacrifice.
Because guilt at its core is the insistence that a price has to be paid.
Yes, if we're feeling guilty, we are actively rejecting the free gift of peace and insisting on making a payment instead.
So the practice becomes simple, but it feels revolutionary. To step back from that whole guilt and payment cycle and just remember that our true self, our sinlessness, is eternal.
Yeah.
Can't be damaged by anything that happens in this world.
That shifts the focus entirely. It's no longer what must I give up. It becomes what illusion am I holding on to that makes me believe I need to pay.
And the answer is always the same. We're holding on to the ego.
And the lesson gives us this reminder to use against that thought system. I am not asked to make a sacrifice to find the mercy and the peace of God. That one thought is the undoing of all guilt.
I'd like to share a story that illustrates this lesson in practice.
Please do.
Okay, there was once a writer who carried a quiet belief that his worth came from how much he suffered for his work. He pushed himself past exhaustion, ruined his sleep, and wore the pain as if it proved that the struggle mattered. He worried that without the struggle, he would feel less like a real artist. The pain felt tied to who he was. Over time, he began practicing a simple line from the Course. The mercy and the peace of God are free. He gave himself a few still moments during the day and kept writing the way he always had. What surprised him was how consistent his work stayed. He started to see that the pressure had shaped a persona, not the work itself. He was relieved, but soon a voice in his head whispered, "You just want everything to be easy, don't you? Are you sure you can call yourself a real writer anymore?" He almost went back to the chaos and suffering just to feel special again. Then he paused and looked at what was actually happening. He realized he was listening to his fear again, and that the persona he'd thought was so crucial to his art had never been real. It was only a shadow that blocked what was already his. Once he remembered that, he felt true relief. He had not lost anything real, and nothing real could ever be in danger. From there, the lesson made more sense to him. He wasn't giving up creativity or meaning. He was letting go of a bargain that had drained him for years. His work stayed alive. His voice stayed clear. What changed was his belief that suffering proved worth. In truth, no sacrifice was asked. The mercy and peace of God had always been his, given freely. He took a breath and allowed the truth of that to stay with him.
That story just captures the ego's fear that if the struggle is removed, the identity is lost. The writer's fear of not being a real writer anymore.
It's the essential teaching of Lesson 343 right there. The true cost of spiritual gain is zero. Anytime we feel obligated to give up what the ego tells us is valuable, our pain, our grievances, our specialness as a martyr, in order to make spiritual progress,
we are listening to the wrong voice. True spiritual progress is not an act of subtraction, of giving something up. It's an act of recognition.
the mercy of God is a completely free, effortless gift.
We cannot lose, for we can only give, and everything is already ours eternally.
Let's carry the freedom of that thought with us today and release the need to make a bargain.